Good afternoon, everybody. Phil Simons with Columbia Grain here, and your Friday afternoon weekly grain market recap. Well, at the beginning of the week on Tuesday, we did have the December USDA World Agriculture Supply and Demand Estimate report that came out, which did provide us with a little bit of fresh fundamental data. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. I'm going to share my screen with you again. We're going to navigate over to our favorite website, columbiagrain.com. And in the upper right-hand corner, we can go to the Producer Solutions tab, and that'll take us over to the Producer Solutions link. Again, we did have the December World Agriculture Supply and Demand Estimate come out on Tuesday of this week, which did have a little bit of a touch of a surprise anyhow from the overall trade's expectations for primarily on corn. When we look at the U.S. potential ending stocks for the 24-25 crop, we did see the numbers come out on Tuesday for corn for the U.S. come in at 1.7 billion bushels for an overall ending stocks numbers for the U.S., which again, this was a little bit of a surprise if we were to look at any area that was a bit of a surprise from this report, it would have came from this number here. When we look at the percentage change from last month, we were down 10% from the numbers last month. And where the average estimate had it coming in at 1.9 billion bushels. So you could see that there was a little bit of a surprise there in terms of what the actual number came out at. So as a result, we did see that the corn futures did rally, a little bit on Tuesday. But then since then, we've really seen things kind of cool off a little bit. And we went into the weekend here pretty much close to unchanged week on week in the corn pit. When we look at soybeans for ending stocks in the U.S., there was really 0% change from last month, so really no surprises there. And when we look at wheat, we did take wheat stocks down slightly, just down 2% from last month's numbers. And again, where the average estimate had it coming in at was the thoughts were to see 815 million bushels for overall U.S. wheat ending stocks, and they actually came in at 795 million. When we look at the world crop production, primarily in Brazil and Argentina, really no changes in Brazil for all intents and purposes for corn and soybean production for the coming crop year. And with corn in Argentina, really unchanged there. The soybeans in Argentina was up 2% from last month's numbers, coming in at 52 million metric tons of overall production. The other slight change that we saw when the world ending stocks was corn was down 3% month on month, coming in at 296.4 million metric tons for overall world ending stocks for the 24-25 crop. But when we take a little closer look here, again, really the big talk was the corn market. When we look at wheat, we did see a little bit of changing here in the overall positions here for wheat, and primarily came from an increase in exports. Last month, we had expectations of 825 million bushels, and this month it was increased by 25 million bushels there and brought it up to 850 million. So net on net, we did see the carryout potentially drop by 20 million bushels month on month, and is now sitting at 795 million bushels there. So again, something to continue to monitor as we go forward. But again, really the bigger concentration this week was on what was going on in the corn market. You can see that the numbers and how they really kind of laid out here. Overall, month on month, when we can compare November to December, we did see that there was an increase in potential ethanol usage by 50 million bushels and an increase of potential exports by 150 million bushels. So the overall usage did potentially increase by 200 million bushels, which in turn reduced our carryout by 200 million bushels. So again, that was where the bigger surprise was coming in the overall report. And when we look at the balance sheet for soybeans, it was a big goose egg there. Quite honestly, there was a zero change month on month. So quite honestly, nothing to even look at in that regard in terms of where the soybean market was. Yesterday, also, we did have the export sales number come out yesterday. And just real quick, I mean, that number, quite honestly, was below where the average estimate had it coming in at for pretty much everything for corn, wheat, and soybeans. We did see the corn number come in at just over 37 million bushels for the previous week. And on soybeans, it was just over 43 million bushels there for soybeans. But again, fairly decent numbers, but they just missed the mark in terms of where the trade was anticipating to see the numbers come in at. And then all wheats, we actually had a 10.7 million bushels sales on the previous week. The biggest by class would have been spring wheat, coming in at 6.6 million bushels. So that's where the activity was really being held last week in terms of export sales. But when the dust settled here today, we can see what the weekly price action was here on the week. Overall, the corn pit, the March corn, we had a 14-cent range on the week. We were able to hold on to just a 3-cent gain, which quite honestly, after the little bit of a surprise that we saw on the USDA report, doesn't really bode too well. But, again, we're going to continue to get into the holiday mode type trading until we get into the new calendar year. When we look at January beans, we actually had a 17-cent range there, and we had a weekly change of a loss of 2 cents there. So again, really nothing too much to write home about in terms of what was going on in the soybean pit here this week. When we turn the page and look at the wheat complex, kind of a little bit of a mixed bag. Quite honestly, we still had a weekly range in Kansas at 20 cents. We were only able to hold on to a 5-cent gain there. In Chicago, we had an 18-cent range and actually had a 4-cent loss on the week. And in Minneapolis, we had a 17-cent range and actually were able to hold on to just 3 cents of the overall weekly ranges that we saw this week in the Minneapolis futures market. So again, really just trying to emphasize the fact that we are getting into holiday mode here, and the volume will definitely be lighter. We do have the December report out. Really, I mean, the biggest change would have been coming from the corn pit. And after everything kind of settled out here today, nobody seemed too overly concerned about it just yet. But again, just trying to highlight the importance of continuing to look at, pricing opportunities and pricing points specifically, for new crop, and what tools should we be looking at using in terms of our marketing plan, from hedge to arrive contracts, basis contracts, cash plus contracts, maybe even a minimum price contract is something to look at too. So be sure to reach out to your local managers and your buyers and get your orders out there and get them working if nothing else. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and wrap everything up for the weekend here. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And remember, when the plate of cookies goes around the table, be sure to grab a couple. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk with you next week.